Welcome to Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode Fandom. My name is Wilder Adams, and we are back after a little break in August, right? We had to take a week off and recalibrate, get ready as we push into the NBA season. Our guests wouldn't know right now, but the Minnesota State Fair happened, and we're enjoying that. But let's actually go to our guest right away. So I am joined by a good friend of mine who has become quite a big name in sports media the past couple of years. Congratulations on that. I am with Logan Camden of Sesh. And Logan, first of all, man, so good seeing you again. How are you doing?
Likewise, man. It's been a minute. We caught up in Vegas for Summer League a little bit. I mean, before that, I think maybe with some pickup runs. Before that, man, it's been a minute, dude. Don't let James fool you, dude. He's a stone cold hooper on the court.
Oh man, don't flatter me too much, man. I tried my best. I tried my best, like since Logan and I last connected, I've been working on my jumper. I think I figured out some things. So I would consider myself now, Logan, more of a shooter than a driver, which is the
Okay.
new combination. So things have changed a little bit, but what about your game, man? Because you had the nastiest spin corner like for years, man. Like it was literally like the Family Guy corner three.
I
You
just
didn't miss from it, bro.
I spam floaters and I run the offense now. I can actually run PG. I'm like a pass first point, and then I got a floater and a three. I guess like a Steve Nash a little bit, maybe like a scaled down one, but I'm still getting out there. I messed up my finger not too long ago, not to get in the weed, so I can only play a couple of times a week now. But still love it, man. We got to get back out there sometime, man. Start kicking some ass again.
Oh man, yeah, we definitely, man. Whenever you come to Minnesota, man, if you're in a Timberwolves game or we're both in Phoenix, man, we gotta reconnect on
I'm
that
down. I'm
100%.
down.
You could be a point guard. I'm kind of like a Concanoopel type now, bro. Like I can create a little bit, but I like running off screens. I can cut. I'm just a white boy basketball player. So you know what? I have to run off screens, catch and shoot threes, and sometimes drive to the rim. But yeah, man, it's so great seeing you again. And like I said, Logan, ever since, especially since he graduated a couple years from Arizona State University, we both went to the same school, and he's built Sesh alongside Carson, and it's become one of the bigger platforms in the sports media world, working for the volume now under Colin Cowherd, Logan. So first of all, before we get started, I just want to say, man, I'm super proud of you and everything you've done the last couple years.
Well, I appreciate it. We're not with the volume anymore. Our contracts actually expired not too long ago, but I'm thankful that we got to work under that umbrella. We're looking for new partnerships and stuff now. But yeah, man, it's not that hard breaking into like the sports content space, like getting started. I'd say it's hard like amassing like a following and stuff like that. But if you stay consistent like you have, man, it's easy. You just got to get started. You know what I mean? The toughest step is that first one, and being consistent, I'd say, is important. But I appreciate it, man. It's always fun. That's why I started trying to get into sports, because I wanted to do something fun for work, and here I am, man. Dreams come true. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk some shop, dude. It's been a long off season, dude. I am fiending for some NBA games to tip off again.
Yeah, dude. And you're fortunate, right? Because you get to cover the NFL and that's
Hmm.
ramping up right now. I'm kind of, of course, the Vikings. It's great to watch the Vikings again. And we're excited about JJ McCarthy. But, I'm starting to get a little itchy, man. Like that SpongeBob meme and that
Oh yeah.
cafe alone. Like that's kind of the vibe right now. But that's a great way because let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, Logan, because that's exactly why we're here today. So this episode, what we're doing is we are ranking young cores, and long story short, it's going to be Timberwolves theme, seeing where the Timberwolves young core is. All players 26 and under. It's Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Rob Dillingham, Tanner Shannon, Yohan Buringer. I'm kind of considering that the young core five because Naz Reid has graduated from that to third contract man. So, Logan, before we get all in onto that, I just want to ask, like, this offseason for the Timberwolves has been quiet. It feels like it's been an emphasis on the young core, really good summer league runs. And, I think we're expecting bigger roles from Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon, and an elevation in leadership from a McDaniels, a Nas, and of course, Anson ascending superstar. What is your takeaway just on how the Timberwolves did this offseason and your opinion on how they'll start the season?
I thought It sucks trying to replace a player like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, because I think that people who weren't really zeroed in on Timberwolves games maybe don't realize like his complete value. He's a really elite perimeter defender, a great shooter as well. Like was over 40% from behind the arc. Can handle a little bit too. Like, and he really took a leap as a jump shooter. He was a good jump shooter 2 years ago, but he really took a big one last year. I was honestly surprised he didn't garner more value on the open market. So a lot of their offseason was one, trying to retain all the pieces from the Cat trade, right? Because you needed to re-sign Julius Randle. You would have just lost an asset. You needed to have DiVincenzo under contract. You needed to bring back Naz Reid. But their big loss was Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think they're pretty well equipped to replace him this year, though, James. You tell me if you think different. Like, I'm very high on Terrence Shannon Jr. I thought he was a big-time steal for the Wolves. I mean, stepped in and played some big minutes for them late in the season, too. Like, I had that really big quarter where, like, I don't know, he ripped off, like, I want to say like 9 to 12 straight points or something like that. That stuck out in my mind. He's a hell of an athlete. He's a good defender. We saw some of the playmaking and scoring in Summer League as well, which I'm optimistic about. But to me, it's not just Terrence Shannon Jr., it's also Jalen Clark, who I think could step into a bigger role for Minnesota, too, as one of those big-time perimeter defenders. You know, that's where Minnesota really makes their money, is on the defensive end of the court. And I think Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. are dogs. And, you know, they may not be 100% of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you know, like year one, but I think you can recreate a lot of that value. So not a ton change. You know, I think that was probably the big loss, but you re-sign Nas, you bring back Randall on a pretty good value deal, and you do have a lot of young talent. I'm optimistic about Dillingham, but to me, he's the swing guy, I think, for me this next season, just because of the regression we've seen from Mike Conley over the past couple of years. Like, I'm confident in Clark. I'm confident in Terrence Shannon Jr. I like a lot of the other pieces. The X factor in the swing to me is probably what you get out of the point guard spot. If it is still Conley, if it is Dillingham, I can't say I'm really confident either way. I'd probably just bite the bullet and move on to Dillingham already, just because Conley's so limited offensively. But I'm optimistic. Not a ton change for Minnesota, and in a lot of ways, I think that's really good considering, you know, I think they're probably a top 5 contender for next season.
I love how you immediately went to the biggest change of the offseason, because I think the fan base is so excited about Terrence Shannon and what Rob Dillingham could potentially bring you as a top 10 pick. But of course, I think it's important to acknowledge Nickeil Alexander-Walker was arguably the biggest just Swiss Army knife on the entire team last year, because in the regular season, at least, you could play him at the 1, you could play him at the 2. He can hit a spot up 3. He can hit a moving 3. He's one of the best bench defenders in the entire NBA, with like a Keon Ellis and names of that nature. And you can say he didn't excel on anything in offense, but he wasn't awful at anything. He can do a little bit of everything on that side of the floor. And it hurts not to have him, because I think in the old CBA, just pure speculation, I think they would have tried to bring him back and give him that money and keep him on this team, because you can kind of plug him in anywhere, especially with Dante and his injuries stuff last year. And like you said, the uncertainty at this point on Rob Dillingham. But I think with the CBA, man, I mean, it's how we have to lead the conversation, right? I think they've kind of maximized what you could do. They had 2 first-round picks last year that I think everybody feels good about. I thought Dillingham showed enough moments when he played extended minutes in that January stretch in particular. And then Terrence Shannon, of course, was awesome in the conference finals, had big moments in the regular season, notably against the Thunder when he scored 25 on that comeback, or in the conference finals against OKC. And then he had that big game against the Lakers. So I think Minnesota fans feel really good about their potential replacing Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like you said, though, Rob Dillingham is the big change, because as much as I've, been on the bandwagon, like if Ant could play more point guard, I would consider starting Terrence Shannon Jr. But if Terrence Shannon's not a point guard, and you might have lost kind of a somewhat point guard in Nickeil Alexander-Walker to get more opportunities for these young players, and now they have the opportunities. So I think you should feel good as a Timberwolves fan in a calculated sense. Like, they have a pretty good chance of contributing. I think Dillingham's talented. I think Shannon is going to be good right away next year. And the question is going to be, can they deliver enough at that point guard position, like you said, to start the season? We've talked about that on this show pretty extended throughout the summer. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I think it starts, ends, and finishes with the how well Rob Dillingham can step up for Mike Conley because they're even down Nikhil Alexander-Walker offensively.
Yeah, and to touch on a few things, one, I can't think of many other teams that got boned harder than the new CBA than Minnesota, just because you think about it, like you make the, and I know people have talked about this a lot too, but you make the trade for Gobert right before any of this comes into play. It was like the Brown and the Tatum extension too, right? Like maybe if you knew that this CBA was lingering around the corner, maybe you don't do this because of how it handicaps the rest of your roster. All that being said, I actually would commend Minnesota and their front office for how they've maneuvered and navigated since that new CBA has been introduced, because I think the byproduct of the new CBA, more than anything else, is that having more depth pieces is more valuable than maybe having some of these top-heavy superstars. So Cat, obviously, I think would be the second best player on this roster, right? But considering what they got back, I think it was a good deal. And I do want to touch on the thing that you said about Ant potentially as a playmaker. I think that would be possible, but I just don't think Ant's playmaking chops are there just yet, right? Last season, because I think the other thing, we're talking about big swing factors for this upcoming season for Minnesota. The other swing factor other than the point guard position would be Anthony Edwards' development and, what other areas he gets better in, right? Because we saw first couple years in the league, insane rim pressure, great at getting downhill, great finishing at the rim too, through all kinds of contact, all that. He did struggle a little bit in these playoffs, but we know Ant's a great downhill force and rim pressure. What he added to his bag last year, and I said this stat a million times on Nerd Sesh, but for like 90% of the year until we got into April, Ant was one of 4 players in NBA history to shoot 40% from deep on 10 or more three-pointer attempts per game. The only guys else on that list are Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Damian Lillard. And so it's like Ant has gone from, it's a freakish combination of athleticism and three-point shooting ability, and like that kind of development in 1 year, like one off season, is kind of outlier stuff. But with Ant, it's like, what else could he get better at next year? You know what I mean? Could he take that kind of playmaking leap that we're anticipating? Could he get better as an intermediate and mid-range scorer? Like, what is next for Ant, I think also could be a really big swing factor, especially if he, ascends to bona fide top 3 kind of player. I don't know if that's on the table. I think he could definitely get like stamped top 5, but who knows? That's just something I want to contextualize. I mean, his development has been historic for such a young player and all the stuff he's already added to his game.
It's hilarious how, on one hand, he was the number 1 pick in the draft in 2020, but he still has had an outlier development because of how raw he was as a number 1 pick. In a lot of years, Anthony Edwards isn't the number 1 pick.
A lot of people, it's funny you bring that up, James. Me and Carson have talked about this a bit on the show. Like, people have kind of done this weird, like, revisionist history with Ant where they, like, say, oh, he was a all-time GOAT prospect. Like, no, there have been a bunch better prospects in the past few years, and I know you're always super tapped in on the draft, so I know you know that.
Oh, man, like that draft was so hard to evaluate because it was none of the number 1 picks as candidates had a clean history. You had Ant, who went to a bad situation at Georgia, graduated a year early, so young, nobody knows about the kid because he never really left Georgia at the time. And then James Wiseman plays 5 games in college. He was probably the most proven in high school. And then LaMelo Ball, he plays in Australia, plays in Lithuania, shoots 25% from 3.
Plays in his dad's league, yeah.
Like nobody knew. Like all of them had massive questions. And Ant, I'll you guys can all make fun of me on the show. Call me an idiot in the comments. Do whatever you want. I had Ant 3rd on my board that year. I had LaMelo 1, and I had Denny Avdia 2. And I think Denny's turning into quite a player, so I'm not that mad at it. But Ant 3 was bad in history, but it puts into context the type of outlier development he's had. He's always been a freak talent, but the way he's applied it, I think, has surprised a ton of people.
Yeah, and it wasn't surprising to me just because, and I don't say that as like a flex, but like Ant is also one of the most like mentally strong players I've ever seen too. Like he has got, of course, these God-given gifts that, the verticality, the athleticism, the explosiveness, like all of that. But Ant also has this, and I know it gets it gets kind of beat into the ground sometimes, but he really does have that kind of dog mentality where I feel like if Ant puts his mind to something, he's going to do it. And so he's come such a long way from the draft, but I don't know. I do think next year, if it's that intermediate scoring, which I think is probably going to be the toughest for him to add, it just normally is for guys like that, the footwork and the touch that comes with like mid-range scoring and that floater range kind of stuff. But it's not long. I think let me ask you this. Do you still think, I know this is a bit of an aside, do you still think Ant could be the second best player on the planet? Because I, for a long time, said I thought Ant was going to be the best player on the planet. And then, Wemby came along, and so it just kind of like threw a wrench into those plans, like long term. Do you still think that's on the table? Do you think Ant could be the best player in the world or the second best player on the world?
I think there's no doubt. I really think there's no doubt. I think there's 5 or so players in that conversation in the next generation. I mean, you can't ignore Victor Wembanyama, 7'4" alien who could do everything and best defender in the world already. Can't ignore that. You can't ignore Luka Doncic, and I get it. He's been out of shape. He's one of the worst defenders I've ever seen. He's also one of the 3 most talented natural offensive players I've ever seen in my lifetime. And you have to consider that at his size and his length and his body control. You have to. And then there's Shea. I think Ant's in that group, man. I think he's in that group because I talked about it on a recent episode. He is an alien in a lot of ways. He's not a 7'4" alien, but he is a top 3 athlete in the league and a top 3 shooter in the league. And that combination is just, I'm not sure we've ever seen that ever. And that wasn't a combination anticipated. And he kind of has this Kawhi thing where every offseason he adds something that nobody expects. So like we're talking about Anthony Edwards going into next season. And I'm like, I don't know if he has the playmaking chops to be that like Dwayne Wade hybrid 1-2. We'll see. But I'm not ruling it out. Year 4 Anthony Edwards, even though he wasn't efficient, showed great variety in the mid-range. Why can't he add one of those things,
Yeah, and I think too, the thing about Ant's playmaking that's fascinating to me is it's not a skill issue. It's more of like the consistency of it. Like Ant, I really thought in certain playoff games throughout the run this last season, like had great moments where he is getting downhill. He's drawing that second defender. He is making skip passes to the corner, skip passes to the wing, and setting up his teammates for good looks. It's just not consistent enough at this point. And I actually thought this was an issue that we saw, not to the extent of Ant, to be clear, but something that we saw with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, where sometimes they can just get into that mode. And I think as he gets older, he's going to develop that more and more. But it's not like Ant has a ton of holes in his game already, right? Like that's why we talk about him as so highly touted. Like he is stamped as a top 10 guy right now. I would hear an argument for him as a top 5 guy. And is one of those guys that you just don't want to see, I still feel like, in a playoff run. You know what I mean? Like there's a ton of other variables that we can talk about with the Timberwolves upcoming for next season from other guys, but Ant is an A1 guy where I do hold him. I could see him outplaying even next season. I could see him outplaying Luka Doncic in a one game a playoff series, right? I could see him outplaying SGA in a series. Is it likely the most likely outcome against a guy like SGA? No, but I could definitely see it. And is one of those kind of guys, and so I still think it's on the table. With Wemby existing, it's tough, but I think top 3 in the next 2 years or 2 to 3 years, I'd say, with like Giannis and maybe Jokic coming back down to earth or something like that. Maybe Jokic goes off and just runs his horses the rest of his career. He's just done with all this NBA stuff. But Ant's one of the best in the league, man. He's admittedly, I mean, Ant's probably my favorite player in the league. I'm not gonna lie. I am a little biased.
Yeah, we're lucky as a fan base just to have that type of influence in Minnesota, just having like a Jefferson and Edwards, like these highly charismatic, outspoken, dominant players. It does feel, nostalgic a little bit when you think of like Kevin Garnett and Randy Moss and those type of tandems. But yeah, man, I mean, I think there's no doubt Anthony Edwards. I think everybody should be excited, and there's really no ceiling you could put on him. I think he's in that mix of like 4 guys in that next group after Jokic. I mean, Jokic might be 40, averaging 24, 10, and 8.
You're right.
I mean, he's already like a 40-year-old body, and he's still doing this. So
I do think he is in that next tier though. Like you put him with Tatum, probably you could put Ant with Steph like right now at this stage in his career. Um, then like maybe KD or something like that kind of. Well, and then I'd say Wemby is also in this next tier of guys too.
He's getting there, yeah, for sure.
I'd put Wemby already there, man. If he had stayed healthy, I think he would have finished the year on a big bang. I'm really excited that he's actually going to have a competent point guard. You know, he had Chris Paul last year, but like an actual guy who can score on his own with Fox. I don't think Fox is the best fit with a guy like Wemby. I think Dylan Harper's I probably prefer more, but I think Fox is going to enhance Wemby definitely next season if he can stay healthy. But
And
I would put Ant towards the top of that group.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think what you just said is a great transition to the meat of the show because, like I said earlier in the show, we are going to compare the Minnesota Timberwolves young core to other teams to see where they stand out. And I think, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do it. We were just talking about the San Antonio Spurs. And I mean, we'll see where Minnesota stands against the Spurs because they keep getting number one, number two picks. But when you compare the Timberwolves young core to like, Wemby and Harper and Fox, or not Fox because he's like 28, but Castle and Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan. How close does Minnesota stand compared to a core like that?
Okay, let me ask you this. Are we ranking these cores long term or are we ranking their viability now?
So for the purpose of this show, it's like which young core you prefer. If you would like, we should also mention like, I agree. I think the Timberwolves are a better team this year. I think that's a great way to frame it. But yeah, this is more long term.
Damn. I would actually probably say San Antonio just for this fact. Now, there are a lot of guys I like about Minnesota. Baron J, I think is. I've watched a lot of tape on a lot of centers. I've never seen a guy pre-draft move like Baron J at his size. Like 6'11", the guy is relentlessly blitzing pick and rolls and stuff like that, and he's recovering to get back in position. And for a guy who started playing basketball, I think at like 16 or something like that, like he had just started playing basketball 5 years ago, his basketball IQ and feel defensively is really remarkable. I really like Dillingham, TSJ, Clark, and obviously Ann is the crown jewel. The reason I would go with San Antonio is just because their second guy I'm that much more confident in long term, and that is Dylan Harper. And that's the only reason I would go with San Antonio over Minnesota, because to me, Wemby and Ant is almost like a wash. Like it's like they almost negate each other. And I think Wemby could be the GOAT. Like Wemby could legitimately just be the greatest player that like has ever played the game. So slight advantage. And then when I look at the number two, would you say that number two guy is still McDaniels? Is it Dillingham long term? Like when I look at them versus a guy like Dylan Harper, I think Dylan Harper is going to be an all-star. I think he's a real offensive engine in this league. I think long term, I'd probably rather have him than Fox. And that's it. That's the only reason I would go with San Antonio, is just because I'm that high on Dylan Harper. But that being said, it is close. And even with that being said, I like Minnesota's depth. I like their complete cast of characters, certainly more than I like San Antonio's, but I like San Antonio's top two more, so I'll go with them.
And I think, frankly, I think that's the right take. I think the way you framed it was perfect because I think if you ask like a national media group of people, which one, they'd be like San Antonio, no question. Let's just like wash it. Let's go to sleep. I mean, I saw a list. The Dane Moore NBA podcast talked about it. There was an article, I haven't seen it yet, saying that Minnesota, they're like the most desperate in this current window among NBA teams, which means like they've set up where they put all the eggs in the today basket versus the future. I think that's nonsense. Totally disagree. But the way you said it was perfect. I think the top end talent of the Spurs is where the advantage starts because they landed Victor and then they landed the number 2 pick in 25. That's ridiculous luck. And I mean, even Stephon Castle, he had number 1 pick on my board in 24 and he just won rookie of the year. So they have him. And then, I mean, I'm lower on Vassell and Sohan and those other guys than the consensus. I like Minnesota's depth more. I like McDaniels, Dillingham, Shannon more than that group by a lot. But I think the clear star power for the Spurs is better right now. But if Minnesota can get that outlier development from a Buringer or a Dillingham then I think that's when the conversation could change a little bit, depending on where Ant and Wemby stand in the league. But I agree. I think the Spurs are probably number one on this list, period.
Yeah, there's maybe one group that could push them, but I think I probably tend to agree with that. The one thing I do like about Minnesota's long-term outlook, though, I will say, I like the fact that this doesn't feel like a Warriors balancing of the two timelines. One, it just doesn't feel like that imbalanced. But two, I also like the fact that the Timberwolves are bringing these young guys up behind veterans where one, they don't have the pressure to play and produce immediately. So it's not like these guys are going to come in and flame out. And two, they also have guys like behind them that they can learn from. These are all-stars and professionals and guys that have won in big spots like, Gobert, Conley, Randall. All these guys are like have been through it, and they've got guys that they can, look up to and learn from. And I'm not trying to throw shade when I say this, but it's not like a Charlotte where you're just sent to like, all right, man, we're just gonna throw you in the pool. Go figure out how to swim. You know what I mean? Like Minnesota's got really good infrastructure, and I think it's gonna work out. I'm optimistic still about Dillingham and Bering J, but Minnesota should be near the top of this list. I have one team. I have one more team that I think will probably concretely be above Minnesota.
And we'll take that because I guarantee those teams weren't in the conference finals last year, except one. One won the title. So one won the title. So I'll take that back. But no, you're totally right. I think that's a great way to articulate it, because I think the most similar situation to this was 5 years ago with the Boston Celtics, because that Celtics team, they had Tatum, they had Brown. It was mainly those two and a ton of veterans, but they didn't need to contribute right away, really. Or that wasn't the intended purpose until the entire Celtics team got hurt and they still made the conference finals. But it was like the Kyries, the Al Horfords, the Gordon Haywards for a hot minute. And even just that entire core, it was an older core, and you're building up Tatum and Brown and kind of that infrastructure where they could play, but they didn't need to. And turned out those guys and Rozier, they could kind of uplift it and still make the conference finals, like what Minnesota has done.
Yeah, and they're playing meaningful basketball games now, and you're showing them how to win. And it's not like this big adjustment period or I think that sometimes can get overlooked when we're talking about like prospects developing and situations and stuff like that. Like it really is a luxury to have like expectations and year one, and then guys in front of you that have been there and done that. And so I think that's invaluable, and I think that'll help a lot of the young Minnesota guys' trajectory.
Yeah, totally. And like, yeah, Burn J playing behind Rudy. Dillingham has had Mike
Mhm.
Conley. I mean, that's just, it feels like the perfect like young player veteranship type dynamic, which if you're trying to develop the maturity of these young players, probably couldn't have better names for that. And I think that's where a team like the Celtics, honestly, Minnesota has an advantage in this way against the Celtics, because there were veteran drama on that team, because Hayward was supposed to be the guy and Kyrie was supposed to be the guy. And then there was just a lot of shade there. But Minnesota, it's a little different because they're kind of spearheaded by a young player early. And I think you just talked about the Charlotte Hornets. So let's talk about them right away. So Minnesota versus Charlotte.
Minnesota for sure, no doubt. No shit at Charlotte. If Charlotte had drafted, I'll add a caveat to this. If Charlotte had drafted Maluach at 4, maybe I would be sitting here and going, all right, maybe this is like a debate. And I don't hate what Charlotte did this offseason. I really like the addition of Knuppel and Liam McNeely. I think when you look at a team that has a playmaker like a LaMelo Ball, that you give him all kinds of shooting and spacing. Like it should be offensive heaven. Like now that you have McNeely and Knuppel and Brandon Miller, like there is shooting and skill and IQ everywhere. And LaMelo has set up all these guys for success. But there's a couple of things. One, when I look at LaMelo as a star, consistently injury prone. I really don't know how he affects winning at a high level. And I know some people are going to get mad at that, but it's like he's inefficient. He always has the ball in his hands. The guy doesn't play defense. And admittedly, all of that isn't his problems. Like the defensive point, when you don't have a center that can play defense, like, or a guy that can stay healthy on the court, it's going to be a problem, right? So I don't put all of those issues with Charlotte on him. But LaMelo, I look at as a flawed star who can't stay healthy. I really like Brandon Miller. I think he's probably a number 2. And then like McNeely and Knuppel, I look at as like rotation role player kind of guys. So no shade at Charlotte. I kind of see a pretty significant gap between Charlotte and probably a lot of the other teams we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think if LaMelo Ball was healthy, Brandon Miller was healthy, I think they're honestly pretty easily top 10 on this list, maybe 5. I'm that high on LaMelo as a talent. Like, I genuinely believe a healthy, comfortable LaMelo Ball could be a top 10 player in the league. I genuinely believe that. Problem is, will he be healthy? Will he show up? And I think Brandon Miller, I'm higher on Brandon Miller than the average person. You just don't find many 6'9" fluid wings who have his feel, his shot making, his range. He has an it factor. I think those two are fantastic. But felt like last year's draft, even though I think McNeely and Conley Collins,
They passed on Klingon too, man.
it felt like a recovery draft from 24. Like, like that one person, they date this one girl and then they decide he hated that girl. Then he dates like the whole entirely different thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can imagine that scenario.
They went for the riskiest player in the 2024 draft in Saloon. Probably whiffed on him. Let's just be honest. Probably whiffed on him.
They
And
dated
then
they dated the party girl, then they said I got to get the bookworm.
they went for the safest draft pick you could think of in Concanoople. So, yeah, I agree with Minnesota versus Charlotte. And this might be the faster part of the show because Minnesota versus Brooklyn. I think we're both on Minnesota here, right?
I don't have a ton to say on Brooklyn. I'll say this: one of the most confusing drafts I've ever seen. That was just so weird.
What's even weirder about it? My first thought was they were building around Cam Thomas and now they don't want to pay him because all the draft picks that they made that night are very high percentile playmakers for
Yes,
their position.
dude, they all were like, I saw that exact stat on the site we use, Data Baller. I don't know if you've seen this stat, James. Really cool site, DATABALLR.com. They have all kinds of stuff on NBA teams and draft prospects, and this really cool page on the draft tab. It'll tell you all the leaders in the draft class at certain stats. And I think all of their guys were like top 15 in assist rate, and the top 3 were like all went to the Nets or something like that.
You would think that means they're helping Cam Thomas out because Cam Thomas has never seen a shot he doesn't like. He's like if Leandro Ball was good. So, yeah, don't know what's going on there. I'll take Minnesota over Brooklyn. And then Chicago, same thing.
I do like what Chicago's cooking. I'll give them that. I really like getting Buzelis last year. Buzelis was one of my favorite prospects just in terms of do it all around impact. God bless him because he got dunked on and memed to all hell in Summer League. Noah Senge, I really liked. I looked at him in a lot of ways like Buzelis, like these all-around athletic wings. But when I look at like the crown jewel of Chicago, it's like Josh Giddey. I've never really been that big of a Josh Giddey guy. Like, credit to him for figuring out the shot a little bit more this year. I think that's the swing factor with him. Like, if he can become an actual reliable scorer, I think Giddey is viable as a lead guard in the league. And then, like, I like Kobe White, but there's definitely, I think there's a pretty big gap between star talent and depth. But I like some of the young pieces in Chicago.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's Anthony Edwards leading this core and the Bulls, it's Kobe White right now. I think that's where the gap changes. I think if you flip them, I think the Bulls are viewed kind of like Minnesota. But here's the thing. I think Chicago has a lot of things going for them. Buzelis, I think, is the most talented long-term prospect from last year's draft. I genuinely do. I think the size, the handle, I think the shooting upside's still there. He's kind of got a mean streak, a nasty. I mean, 6'11 guys who are fluid, insane verticality, and can shoot. I'm going to bet on those guys. I just think he has the most potential in that draft. So if he takes like a Paul George type, like upward climb, like a young Paul George in Indiana, then I think there's Chicago moves in the conversation. And I love Asenge as well.
I mean, if he takes a George leap, yeah, I'm all in on Chicago, man. That would be gnarly. I do like Buzelis a lot, though. He was like a top 3 guy to me, and the fact that he slid that far blew my mind. Like you said it, dude. And this is really scaled up version, but like hypothetically, if he maxed out to me, you're looking at a guy that's like really athletic Franz Wagner. Again, that's like peak because Franz is so polished and outside of the 3-point shot, right? Like, but the handle, I think we're a few years away from that, but I still could see that for Buzelis.
And a more competitive young duo, I would say, the Cleveland Cavaliers with Evan Mobley, Darius Garland.
I don't know. I might have to. I might have to Cleveland on this one.
Really? Let me hear why.
Who all are we including in the core? Is it just Garland and Mobley?
Mobley, Garland, Jalen Tyson, Tyrese Proctor. I would say that's the young core.
Damn, it's top heavy, but I mean Garland and Mobley are. Who did we have? We had the Spurs.
Yep.
Would I go? Damn. I mean, I'm super high on Mobley. Carson and I both love Mobley. Mobley was, I think, Carson's like favorite prospect of all time when that draft had come out. Like he was all about him. He is a transcendent defensive player. Won Defensive Player of the Year this year. Extremely switchable, elite rim protector. But the thing about Mobley this season that blew my mind, and I think everybody else's, was just the comfortability of shooting and taking jump shots.
Mm-hmm.
His ability to initiate from the perimeter, run inverted pick and roll, push in transition, like. And I think we are scratching the surface of like what Mobley could be. So I think Mobley is a top 10 guy one day in this league. And then Garland, I just think Garland's had like some of the worst luck I've ever seen from a basketball player over the course of 2 years. The myriad of injuries he had last year with the jaw injury, and then he lost a bunch of weight. And then this year he gets injured again in the playoffs. Like I think Garland is a special point guard. He's just a big-time defensive liability. And I don't know if you saw this stat, James. I know the one that was getting peddled around throughout this year was the fact that Cleveland's offense was actually statistically better with Garland on the court and Mitchell off the court than it was with Mitchell on the court and Garland off. Like, that was staggering. So, damn, man. I'm really high on Cleveland. Cleveland's one of the cores I'm highest on, but I'm going to put Minnesota above them just because of the depth and my faith in Ant. Like, I do think the depth is kind of overwhelming. Like, when we're getting past Garland and Mobley, that is where I think Minnesota takes the cake. So right now I would go San Antonio, Minnesota, Cleveland.
I totally agree with the Cavs being top 3 so far. And I love the Mobley love because you're absolutely right. I mean, as of raw talent outside of Wemby, Mobley's the most talented young big in the league, and it's not.
We've had this debate before. Him or Chet?
I would take Mobley right now.
Carson would too. I said I would take Chet just because there's a different level of offensive ceiling I think I see, but I do see the case. There's a huge strength advantage in Mobley's favor too.
I love Chet, Minnesota guy, and I think we're all. Even though they killed us, I think we're deep down a little happy that somebody brought a championship to Minnesota. But the thing with Chet, I so worry about his body. There's something about the way he moves, and I don't know. Like those. I have a bulldog, okay, and anytime like a bulldog like loses his one foot, he splats. And every time I see Chet fall, he splats. And he has like the thinnest legs, and he's just so skinny, and he's had hip issues, he's had knee issues, foot issues. I mean, basically every red flag of injuries for a big Chet Holmgren has had, and I kind of worry about how that's going to hold up. So that's
I completely understand that. That's very, very valid. And knock on wood, Mobley hasn't. Mobley's been as consistent, as solid as they come.
And the skill development with Mobley has been ahead of my expectations.
Shout out Kenny Atkinson. Well, I was nervous, dude. I don't know about you. Was it year 2? I want to say it was year 2 where I was like, man, it is really not coming along. The shot isn't there. The handle isn't there. And then 2 years ago against Boston, when they were, really down, Garland was out, Allen was out, and he took over. That was impressive. And then this year, it's just been another leap. It's like, we've been on this roller coaster kind of trajectory. Like, what if Mobley just keeps climbing, man?
He's second team All NBA. Yeah.
Do you think is he the best Cavalier?
I think after this year he will be.
I think so too. I think it's a good take.
Donovan Mitchell making first team All NBA over Ant. I still can't get over
Oh,
that.
don't get me started.
I get it. They won 64 games, but I'm not even sure he was the most impactful Cav last year. He was a mediocre efficiency 24 a night. He wasn't locking down anybody. And then Anthony Edwards literally had a jetpack on the Timberwolves the first half of the year. And Minnesota makes the conference finals. And I get that's in the postseason, but like, come on, man. Do we really think that Mitchell impacts winning more than Ant? Ant's made 2 conference finals. Mitchell's made 0.
I do think Donovan has gotten an unfair amount of criticism for like his playoff shortcomings. That being said, it's not close to me.
Not
There's
close.
like, it's Ant, and then there is a very big gap, and then there's every other shooting guard in the league.
Yeah, Mitchell's great. I love his game. He's fun to watch, but I mean, I get they won more games. I think he's a top 15 player, but I think Ant, like considering where Minnesota started the year with a whole new team and still missing the play-in tournament in his shooting record year, I thought he was a first team lock. And I honestly hope this is the year he gets that credit. And now let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks because 6 months ago, it would have been like, and then the Luka trade happens. And then it's like, what's going on? And then now we got Cooper Flag, #1 pick. We love him. You and I love him. I saw your ranking. He was number 4 on small forwards already. You're high on him. So what do you think?
Yeah, that might be my most outlandish take of all time. I didn't even think that was that ridiculous, and I don't know if I had like the soundest logic on that. My thinking was just these are guys I want long term. I was like, I definitely want Coop more than Jaylen Brown. Coop, I think, is going to be one of the most pro-ready rookies that we've ever seen. Like, and I don't use this comp lightly. Like, I would say someone similar to maybe like an Anthony Davis or something like that, where they are going to be immediately impactful and destructive, ironically, because that's his teammate. But defensively, right, going to be super impactful on the perimeter as a help side rim protector, as a rebounder. Like, he just brings you so many different areas of value that you don't traditionally get from a rookie. Great verticality. I think he's going to be great in transition and as a cutter. Really as a spot-up player, too. I know you saw it in the Summer League, James, because we were all there. But when there is an advantage created for him, giving a jab step off the wing, right, and getting into the paint and yamming on somebody. Like, Coop, I think, brings a lot of value as a connective asset immediately, where he is a good decision maker, too. I think the determinant for him long-term is going to be how great he can be as an on-ball playmaker, self-creator, and scorer. And I think it'll be somewhat of like maybe a Jason Tatum trajectory, right? Where maybe first couple of years, it's really simple finishing off of stuff that's created for him, or spot-up shooting, or a lot of spot-up stuff. But I think long-term, that's going to determine how great he is. That being said, I'm very high on Cooper Flag. Extremely high, probably higher than a lot of other people, like you mentioned in my rankings. But it's not really close to me against Minnesota. I don't know who the second, Jaden Hardy? Like, who's the Derek Lively, I guess, would be the second
Max
guy.
Christie.
Yeah. So I like Dallas's young core. I couldn't put them above Minnesota, but Cooper is a big deal. Would I put them? I think I put them behind Cleveland too. Actually, yeah, I'd put them just behind Cleveland, but that one's close to me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Cooper Flag, I'm super high on him too. Like I did a ranking, like let's rank the last 5 #1 picks outside of Wemby. And I had Flag against or ahead of Cade and Paolo and those guys. And we both know how good Cade is becoming, and we'll talk about him soon. I think Flag, I can see him having a Tatum type impact year 1 and ascending in that type of player. I also think he can have like by year 2, I'm not kidding. I think by year 2, he can have like a J-Dub type impact on the Mavericks. I think he could be that good that quickly and be like an all defensive guy and a really fun connective secondary type player. So I think Flag's got a super bright future. But like you said, I think you hope Cooper reaches an Ant tier. I think that's the hope. We already know Ant's what we want Cooper Flag to be. And then you look at Lively. I like Lively. I like Jaden McDaniels more. And then you go down the list. I like Minnesota's depth more. So I think Dallas is pretty clearly behind Cleveland and Minnesota and all those guys. So I think you cooked on that. So let's talk about another competitive team. Kidding, Denver Nuggets with Christian Braun, Peyton Watson, Hunter Tyson.
Yeah, they're not making the list. I'll keep it a stack. Hey, shout out Christian Braun though. I didn't think Christian Braun's development was going to be as good as it was last year. I was really skeptical about the shot. That guy's got one of the most ridiculous motors I've ever seen, man. That guy just doesn't stop going. Great defender, great rebounder, good shooter last year too. And I like Peyton Watson off the bench too, man. That guy is just a battery. You just inject him. He's a shot of adrenaline. You get him out there and he's wreaking havoc defensively, making plays. He's not that polished offensively. I do like Strother too. I think Strother could have a bigger role for the Nuggets this year. I was way more optimistic about him being impactful year one than he actually was, but I think he could have a role on the team. That being said, this group probably does not sniff the list.
Shout out to Deron Holmes as well. He was somebody I was excited about, but the Achilles, and he looked pretty good in Summer League. He had some moments. So now we just hope that his athleticism translates, because as a 6'9" center, that's a big deal for him. So we'll see how that translates. And now here's an actually really fun competitive core that I think you and I both like a lot. The Detroit Pistons with Cade, Duran, Asar, Ron, Ivy. I think they're pretty high up here.
Yeah, definitely. We're including Cade in this young core too.
Yeah, Ant's age. So
I would put them. I'm debating if they go above or behind Cleveland. I think I like them more than Dallas. I would put them maybe above Cleveland just because of the depth. I like Cade a lot, and I think Cade is unique in the sense that he brings such well-rounded value. I think there are some things that he needs to work on. Getting all the way downhill to the rim, I still feel like is an area of concern for Cade, but what I will give him credit for is he added the intermediate range. I think like 36% of his shots came from in between 3 to 10 feet, and
elite.
he's really using his strength in that area well, where like you'll notice, especially in the playoffs, against a guy like Jalen Brunson, for example, using that size and strength advantage to consistently get into that intermediate area and find shots, and then using that to create opportunities for his teammates. He's improved as a three-point shooter. He's now a 35% three-point shooter, which I think was a very important addition to his game. Needed to get better at protecting the basketball. I thought the turnovers were a little bit high in the playoffs, but I really do like a lot of these young players, and I think that's what gives them the edge over Cleveland to me. Duran, I really like as an interior guy, just as a rebounder, right? Just a rare kind of athlete in the middle. Ron Holland, I loved as a prospect. Like, crazy athlete, great in the open floor, and one hell of a defensive playmaker. But just some of the creativity is what I like to Ron Holland, man. Some of the stuff he would do with the ball in his hands, the passes, the scoring wasn't super polished, but he's such a freaky athlete that I bought into it. Asar, I still think has really high potential. I think he's going to be an all-defense guy like his brother. And Jaden Ivey, man, I also loved as a prospect. And what he was giving us last year before he got hurt was really intriguing to me. If his shot comes along and he can be like the number 2 for Cade that can fill it up and can just take some of that pressure off of him, I really liked Ivy as a prospect. So a lot of this, I think, has to do with the totality of the cast behind Cade, but it also has to do with the fact that I am pretty high on Cade. So kind of like what I said, I like Cleveland's top-end talent, I think, more, but I think the depth puts it over for Detroit. So I'd put Detroit above Cleveland.
How about versus Minnesota?
I don't think I could put them above Minnesota, just because there is enough of a gap between Cade and Ant to me. So, damn, that one's close.
It's so close, man. So close.
I like a lot of the young guys in Detroit, but I'm going to give it to Minnesota because of how much I believe in Ant.
I love that. I think it's hard because I agree. I think like Cade's arrival happened this year, and I think it started making some of those Twitter conversations, like how far is he actually behind Anthony Edwards? And I think there's a fair gap. It's not like a massive gap, but I think it's I don't think anybody in their right mind would take Cade over Edwards, even though I think Cade's kind of pushed himself in that franchise player tier. Like, no one's going to joke about Cade Cunningham as a franchise player. The guy's stamped as that. So I would lean Minnesota too. I would say this. I think Detroit's young core, like behind Minnesota, I think there's a lot of good ideas on both, none of them fully formulated. If Detroit's a little ahead in that next group of young players, I'm not mad at that. I'm lower on Ivy than you are. I My problem with Ivy is I still think he's such a one-dimensional thinker on the basketball court. And sometimes I feel like every decision he makes on offense is so rushed. I think he's a very rushed decision maker. He doesn't pace it well with the ball in his hands. I'm not a huge fan, but I will say, like, I think you look at, I love Ron Holland. I think there's a world he's the number 2 long term. I think there's that world. And then you look at Duran and Asar. I think it's a little more proven than what Minnesota has. Like, of course, I think situationally that matters because if those guys were on Minnesota, they wouldn't be able to prove it either. So I think if someone picked Detroit, I wouldn't be that mad because if you were more skeptical about the outside of guys, but yeah, I think that was honestly Spurs won, but I think
The
Detroit the
thing
closest.
the thing that I'd say about Detroit's score is there are enough questions, I think, about the shooting, about all of the guys that we brought up, that I think that tips the scales a little bit, because there is a world in which some of those guys are going to have to go because they just can't space the floor reliably enough to play alongside Cade. Like Asar and Ron still really need to find their shots. Jaden, I still believe that way long term. Duran's a non-spacer, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't have any issues with people taking the Pistons either. They turned it around in a big way. I mean, literally, what was this, that like 2 years ago? Like, everybody that was on their roster isn't in the league anymore. Like 10 guys, something ridiculous like that.
29 straight losses, right? I mean, it was bad. And I mean, in another caveat, like if Nas Reed just missed this list, if Nas Reed was on this list, I think it's Minnesota, no question. But because he isn't on this list because he just turned 26, third contract, man. Like I think the Detroit thing, it's close, but I would lean Minnesota too because of Anthony Edwards. Now, this was a funny one. Golden State Warriors.
Number one, dude, they got Jonathan Kuminga, James.
Ooh, oh yeah, they did say they would prefer keeping number 2 and Kaminga over Anthony Edwards, so he must be pretty good.
Dead last. Dead last. They're not on this list. They are actually probably the bottom of this group. They're a building block. No disrespect, because I shouted this guy out pre-draft. I think Quentin Post. It's like Quentin Post and Moses Moody. Like, shout out those guys. But yeah, I think the Warriors might actually be 30th on this list.
Not 30th. I mean, see the Celtics. I mean,
Fair. They got like Kata, and that's it.
they got shout out Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman,
For
but
real.
yeah, they're bottom half for sure. So yeah, Minnesota is ahead. Houston. Okay, this is a pretty good one. Houston Rockets with Jabari, Şengün, Amen, Reed Shepard. That's a pretty freaking good one.
Houston was the one I was thinking about that could be number. Who's number 2 right now? We had San Antonio 1. Is Minnesota still 2?
Still 2.
Ooh wee. Yeah, I would go Houston 3.
Okay.
The reason Houston's going to go 3 is because they don't have a number 1 like Anthony Edwards. So I'm going to make the same. Ooh, where do we go? Houston. Now I'll go Houston 3. I think the aggregate, even though, because I don't think Houston has a number 1 like an Ant or a Cade. I do think Houston's like aggregate talent here. And Jalen Green's a non-starter for me too. I think the fact they got rid of Jalen Green actually makes them better. I don't really know what Jalen Green is going to be long term. So, I mean, they're loaded. Jabari Smith Jr., I know some people have been disappointed with like his development trajectory and the fact that he's not, this takeover scorer or something. I think he's really valuable in the role that he does. He is a big framed, strong athlete, really good defender and rebounder, and he's a good floor spacer, junkyard dog kind of guy. So I'm actually thrilled where he's at. Amen Thompson, I thought, took a pretty major leap last year in terms of touch
Yeah.
and finesse, and is one of the best athletes ever. Like, he's just a freak, one-of-one kind of athlete. And he's also brilliant in terms of basketball IQ, on ball and off ball. So I'm super high on Amen as well. I think Reed Shepard does have a role in this league. Is it going to be with Houston? I don't know. But I do think he's going to be good in this league. And then Sengun, I know some people are higher on me than Sengun just because I think some people kind of do this misattribution thing with Sengun, where I think because the Rockets were so good last year and he was an all-star, they pencil him in as this like top 30, top 25 kind of guy. I still think I like his game. I just think there are some areas of refinement. I think he needs to become a better floor spacer and shooter. I don't like his touch right now. Like I think he does a lot of the good connective stuff, but he's just not effective enough as a scorer. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He did improve as a defender as well last year too, and a rim protector. I want to give him credit for that, but not effective enough as an offensive player for me to be able to buy in. So like right now, I think Houston has a lot of number twos and number threes, enough that I'm confident in putting them above Detroit, but they don't have that number one guy, and because of that, I couldn't put them above a Minnesota or a San Antonio. But I mean, they're comically loaded, dude. I mean, this is a special combination of young talent. Like if to any NBA teams, I would say if you can get a haul like Houston got for Harden or anything like that, man, pull the trigger because it is going to, if you hit on your draft picks, it is going to set you up for such success down the road, man. Like, you got to be smart, man. Those picks are super valuable, and Houston has cashed in a big way with a lot of these guys. So I like it. I will say the swing factor, though, man. If a men hits in a big way this next season, they could climb on this list.
You nailed it. I can't really add much other than what you just said. If Amen Thompson becomes at his ceiling, which I honestly think, I think the best version of Amen Thompson is like a 5 to 10% discount Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's how good he could be.
Carson said this on our show last episode. He said, I don't think you can put a ceiling on a man, which I think makes a lot of sense. Like literally, if he figures out everything, this could be, yeah, that's a good comp, dude. Maybe like, and what's crazy about a man is he's so effective. One of the things I love most about him, and I say this all the time on Nerd Sesh, is the fact that he knows how to weaponize what he's great at, and he doesn't try to force it, right? Like, it's like if a man shot 10 threes a game, his value plummets because he's taking bad shots, but like he doesn't. And so if he does become a 35% three-point shooter, like he doesn't even have to be like an elite shooter. He just has to be passable. And then you are getting this top 10 kind of player.
Outside of Jalen Williams and maybe Cooper Flagg, depending on what he does, I can make the case that he could become the most scalable young player in the league. You can make him an elite role player, and you can make him an all-star level player. Whatever you want, he can probably do it. And I think that's why Houston is close, because I think he's close to Minnesota. I think they're very close. If Minnesota's back cast doesn't quite live up, and I think Minnesota's young core, because of the veterans, are positioned for a Dillingham and Beringer to figure it out. But if they don't, and Amen becomes a legit top 15 player, if not more, Houston wins. So I think they're like you said, that Cavs, Mavs, Houston, Detroit group. It's close, but just a little behind so far. And now another really interesting one, the Indiana Pacers with Halliburton, Nemhard, Mathurin, Walker, Nesmith. I mean, I like them too.
I like Indiana a lot, and if we are including Halliburton in this young core,
25, so I consider it, yeah.
I would put them, I think, above Detroit. And the reason I would go above Detroit is I think the ceiling of the Detroit guys is probably higher with all the athleticism they have, but I think the floor is a lot higher with what I'm getting at Indiana. One, I still think Halliburton clears Cade, and I understand people will argue Cade with the rebounding and the defense and stuff like that, but Halliburton just creates such easy offensive opportunities and is such a good offensive engine. I hope he comes back 100%. I mean, truly one of the most devastating injuries I've ever seen on literally the biggest scale you could get in the NBA. But Nemhard, I get is inconsistent. That guy's got ice in his veins. He doesn't fear a shot. He doesn't fear the moment. Is a good defender as well. Nesmith is the man. Like Aaron Nesmith. Holy shit, dude. I just never saw this coming from him. I never thought Nesmith was going to be this kind of player. He is one of the elite shooters of the basketball in today's game and is an elite defender. And then Mathurin. Mathurin could take another leap this year where he wasn't, I think a lot of people forget 2 years ago, wasn't available in the Eastern Conference Finals run that Indiana made, was a huge difference maker in this year. With Halliburton out for this year, he could take a leap as a primary initiator and creator. And then you bring up Jarris Walker. Dude, Jarris Walker was one of my favorite prospects in that draft class, and unfortunately, he just got buried behind a loaded front court, well, not front court, but more specifically four spot where Indiana's got Siakam and they've got Obi Toppin, where they don't really need Jarris. Jarris was an elite defensive playmaker at Houston, averaged over a steal and a block per game, was a really good shooter, was a really high-level mismatch attacker with his size and strength. And so I'm still really high on Jarris too, but I'm just so confident in all of those guys panning out and being really high-quality players, and then I do think the ceiling for a guy like Mathurin and Walker is higher. So I would put them above Detroit, but behind, Houston's close. What do you think about them between Indiana and Houston?
I think I would
That's
take it. I would
tough.
take Indiana, and the reason why I would take Indiana is because I've seen this core completely under a system of Carlisle leverage into the finals. I've seen it, and what I think makes this core special and why you could have the case that they're three so far is that it's kind of like the Warriors 10 years ago, where not are they the most talented? You can argue that, but they're so synergized, they're so interconnected, and they play such an elite style of basketball where everybody fits it. Like Detroit, we don't know yet. With Houston, we really don't know yet because Houston was built by a great defense, not great offense, and this young core seems more offensively driven. So I would say Indiana's proven it, and they have such a synergized system. What hurts them is the Halliburton injury because you never know with an Achilles, you know? So that's where I think
I think
Indiana.
that's right. I think let's slot them in at 3. I think that makes sense.
And then another elite young core, like elite. I think this one honestly might be the best in the league. The LA Clippers with Kai Jones in his
Whew.
music, Kobe Brown, and who is the center they took 30th? I forgot his name already.
He's got a wicked
Big name.
name. He's got a
Yeah,
wicked name.
wicked name.
Wow, what is that guy's name? Let's
Because
see. I'm getting on the internet machine now.
he's a
Con
massive human.
Conan Niederhauser. Yeah, Yannick Niederhauser, man.
Man, that is a name.
Actually, the Clippers may be 30th, man. I'm not gonna lie. I may have overlooked the Clippers in our evaluations because they are effectively an old folks' home. I think the Clippers are gonna be good. This is not meant to disrespect them, but they are. Clippers would have been favorites 10 years ago, man. They'd be title favorites.
Jalen Clark would be the best prospect on the Clippers. That's shout out to
For
Jalen Clark.
sure.
He's a better prospect than anything they have right now. And let's transition to another. I think this is a fun core. We don't know the answers to the equation yet, but Philadelphia with all their fun guards and Tyrese Maxey, McCain, Edgecombe, Justin Edwards. I think it's an underrated duo or core.
Yeah.
I love VJ, by the way. I think
I love VJ too. And I know a lot of people have made this comp too. I mean, the guy that he looks like is Oladipo. Like, if he figures it out, the freakish athleticism, the defensive like upside, and the floor. It's just rare that you see that kind of athleticism in a guard body. He's going to have to figure out some of the issues in the half court. Like, I think some of the stuff in the half court worries me, like the turnovers, the field goal percentage, stuff like that. He has a problem in the open court. For those reasons, who did we have behind Cleveland? Did we have anybody behind Cleveland in the top 10?
I haven't made like an official like list so far
I
because
think
teams are left, but
I couldn't put them above. I don't think I could put them above Cleveland.
I have the Spurs ahead of Minnesota on our list, but then it's like close. The close teams: Indiana, Cleveland, Dallas, Houston, Detroit. I think they're behind all those teams, but
I think they're behind Cleveland too. I don't hate what they have. It's just like Maxey. I thought Maxey was going to be a number 1. To me, he's looking more like he's probably a number 3. on a really good team, or a number two. McCain, I like a lot, is like a starter. And then Edgecombe, I do think has star upside, but I don't know if he's going to get there. Whereas Mobley and Garland, even though the depth isn't great there, I know what I'm getting with them. So I would put, I think, Philly behind Cleveland.
Yeah, I think you're right. We just have to see it. Like if VJ Edgecombe becomes Oladipo and prime Oladipo, I have an Indiana jersey in my house somewhere, dude, and that's because of Mr. Victor Oladipo. So we got to remember his name. But to speed up like the last part of the show, instead of going through like all 30 teams, because the Clippers and the Celtics, LOLs, but
Oh,
like,
the Bucks. The Bucks are definitely 30. We can
oh,
slot them in there for
bro,
sure.
Ryan Rollins is special, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. But okay, so there's a couple of teams I'm going to cut out. Like we're not talking about the Bucks. Okay, we won't talk about the Lakers. We won't talk about, even though I like some of the Heat young players, they're not in this conversation. I'm not going to talk about the Knicks. I'm not going to talk about the Kings, even though I love your Kings. You know what? We'll talk about the Kings. No,
Oh,
okay,
we don't have to. We don't have to, actually.
you're a Kings guy, so I wanted to respect that. And then, yeah, I think those 5 teams will just cut out to speed up the show a little bit. But next team really quickly, because I think we'll take Minnesota over them. The Grizzlies with Gigi and Edie and Scottie Pippen, Wells, Vince Williams, Jaren. I mean,
Whole lot of mid, man. Whole
a
lot
lot
of
of mid.
mid. Maybe, are we including Triple J? I guess that's a distinction.
He's 25, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he's 25. I think he might be 26, if I'm not mistaken.
He was
Triple
the youngest
J.
in his draft.
Triple J is 25. You're
He's
right.
25. He
So you know
counts.
what? I'd put Memphis behind Cleveland too. Memphis is really good. I think they're definitely better than who we just talked about. I think they're, because Triple J is a good building block, but there's a gap. Like the 1-2 punch of Mobley and Garland exceeds them. I like Edie. I like Wells. It's very mid though. I don't see a ton of like star pop outside of Triple J with them.
Yeah, it's like a Cedric Coward. He's a
Now,
Coward.
Cedric Coward, I really do like, though. I really do like Cedric Coward.
Very intriguing swing, right?
Huge swing.
He's kind of in a funny way. I think Jalen Williams made him a lot of money
Yeah,
because
that's who he looked like on tape for sure. Like if there was a guy you were going to point to. And he's experienced too, man. The guy's played a lot of college ball.
5 years, and he broke out a couple years ago. He started pretty low, like D3 basketball, moved his way up. So we haven't seen him like dominate like D1 basketball or anything over a long sample, but tools, they're great. And now we're going to skip over a few teams, okay? So like Miami, no. Pelicans, no. Unless Derek Queen is worth trading a 2026 Hawks first round pick for, then maybe, right? I mean, Zion, I think Zion's still 20. He's 26 now. So he doesn't count. Trey Murphy's 25 on this list. And then New York Knicks, no. Tyler Kolek and Pacom Dadier are probably their best prospects. Okay, this is the one I'm like, ooh, okay. The Oklahoma City Thunder, NBA champs, Chet, J-Dub, Kaysen, they deserve it.
OKC's got to be one, I think.
Yeah.
Even if
I
we're
agree.
not including Shea, like J-Dub and Chet are such amazing foundational building blocks. Chet has gotten shit on a lot for not being elite offensively. The guy held opposing players like 15.5% below their field goal percentage inside 6 feet, which is a ridiculous number in the regular season. And I understand the injury concerns if maybe you want to dock him for that, like we were talking about earlier with the Holmgren Mobley dynamic, but he is a freakish rim protector. I think he's even better at protecting the rim than Mobley. He's really switchable too because of his agility and fluidity. The only thing that you have, questions about is his offensive game, and I don't really hold that against him because it's like Chet hasn't had. So again, maybe if you do hold the injuries against him, you do hold this against him, but he hasn't had like a ton of game time where he can really grow his offensive game out yet because he has been injured. And so I don't hold that against him. And then J-Dub, I think J-Dub played about as bad as he could in the playoff run. And I don't mean he played poorly, but just like relative to expectations, way down on three-point shots. Had a horrendous Denver Nuggets series. I know he had the 40-piece in the finals, obviously. But I feel like J-Dub can be way better in another playoff run. He's going to improve. I feel like Chet is going to improve offensively, and then,
They
like
got a
you
lot of
mentioned,
guys outside of them. They got Casey
exactly,
Wallace. They got I think Nikola Topic has some talent.
100%.
I mean Isaiah Joe, Thomas Sorber is a
I like
lottery
Sorber a
talent.
lot too. I like Topic. Like, the foundation is obviously J-Dub and Chet, which are known commodities, but they do have some other young guys that I really believe in. So, it's close, I think, between them and the other top dogs here, like Minnesota. But OKC to me is at the top of the pack.
I think that's fair. They're champions, and I mean, I think I am because you're like way higher on Chet than the average person right now. I think. By the way, Chet is the GOAT pound for pound rim protector ever. I just want to. It's not even close. Pound
Pound
for
for
pound.
maybe actually, I don't know. Manute Bol was pretty small too. If we were just going straight rim protector, but
He
I
was
think
bigger
Chet's
than Chet though. I mean, he's 7'6", like 220, wasn't he?
maybe. I don't know, man. Manute was about. He looked like the dude from the Apple Jacks commercials, man. He was thin, but it's not a bad take. I mean, Chet is the best modern one I can remember. And it's not just like his frame; it's the instincts, man. Like the recovery blocks. He's
Mhm.
ridiculous, dude.
And I also think to add, I think J Dub is. I got a lot of heat for this on Instagram. I think he's the best prospect from the
I saw the
2022
take. I
draft.
loved it. I thought it was a great take. I thought it was phenomenal.
I genuinely think people were just like, but he's a number two, Paolo's a number one. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean anything. J Dub was a number two on a title team, and Paolo was a number one on a bottom 10 offense. I mean,
Yeah, and ironically, you look at all the advanced stats, and I have a complicated like love-hate relationship too with Paolo, but you look at all the advanced numbers, the Magic's offense and defense were way better with Franz on and Paolo off than vice versa. And so it just when we're approximating winning value right now,
mhm,
I couldn't argue Paolo over J-Dub. J-Dub brings, and I get it, because you see the route to being an offensive engine with Paolo. That's long term. When J-Dub is a really effective offensive player right now by himself, when he's on the court, I would still say better than Paolo, ironically, and
mhm.
he is an elite defensive player. I would say one of the 10 best defensive players on the planet, walling up guys in the post, locking up guys down there. If it's Triple J, if it's not Siakam as much, if it's Julius Randle, Siakam kind of got his, but he held his own too. J-Dub protecting the rim as a help side rim protector. The OKC defense didn't have iHeart and Chet for a large portion of this last year, and yet J-Dub is, holding down the five effectively for this team and rebounding well. Like, there's such a massive defensive gap, and hear me out. Paolo has the defensive tools where he could be really effective too. He just hasn't tapped into them, in my opinion, the way a guy like J-Dub has, and to me, that's still a major gap. So, Paolo's complicated, man. It's a lot of people really love Paolo, but I would take J-Dub above him too. I get it.
And I think this is where another thing people are missing on it. I think the notion is that Paolo is the higher ceiling guy, and Paolo's got a really high ceiling. Don't get me wrong. I think best case, he has a scoring title. But I think Jalen Williams has number one potential too. Maybe not in the way where he's going to get you 30 on high volume, but there's a little bit of Kawhi there where it's like, if you need him to get 34, he could, but consistently, probably closer to 26, giving you everything else. And I think if you switch J Dub and Paolo, I think that the Magic get better because J Dub helps the floor spacing. He leans into their identity. And if you you flip it again, I think whoever has J Dub is the better team. So yeah, I don't know why that was so controversial. And speaking of the Magic, let's move to the Magic's young core, which is also very competitive on this list. You got Paolo, you got Franz, Anthony Black, De Silva. I love Jason Richardson. Noah Penda is interesting. What do you think of the Magic and where they stand versus Minnesota?
I would take Minnesota. Again, this comes down to my faith in Anthony Edwards. I would put Orlando closer to this like Detroit tier of teams, probably slightly I don't know. They're right next to Detroit. I don't know if they're above Detroit or behind them. I do like the addition of Bane. I know he doesn't count. It's basically just Paolo and Franz. It's one hell of a combination. I mean, they're top. They're Franz is just better right now to me. And like, I just have so many questions about Paolo. That's it to me. Like, Carson and I have talked about this a lot, and Paolo is such a polarizing player to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Paolo to me has like 2 or 3 years with his shot selection where we're really going to know what we're getting. And what I mean by that is Paolo is 6'10", 250 pounds, has a freakish combination of size and strength and skill, great ball handle and passing ability for a guy his size. If Paolo is still settling for mid-range jumpers the way he was this season, 2 to 3 years from now, I'm just like not as high on Paolo and his long-term outlook as other people. If Paolo weaponizes his physical traits and is getting downhill more and is playmaking for his teammates more, and of course, we have to recognize the hellish situation that he's in offensively in Orlando. Orlando, fun fact, had more games scoring 100 points or less than any other team in basketball last year. That includes the Hornets. That includes the Nets. Like, Orlando was an abysmal offense. And I get they dealt with injuries and stuff too last year to Franz and Paolo both, but I do think that speaks to the situation that he's in, which does limit some of his playmaking value. That being said, he still needs to get better in that area, and it's mental, right? It's not like a physical thing. With Paolo has all the physical traits and the skill. It's going to be him consciously deciding, I need to get downhill more. I need to get to the rim. And I'm just not super confident that he's going to figure that all the way out. So I would put him probably behind Cleveland, like somewhere near Detroit. I don't know. I'm not super high. I like Anthony Black. Anthony Black's got to figure the shot out. I like Tristan Da Silva a lot as a rotation kind of guy. It comes down to Paolo, and I believe in other teams' number ones more than I do Paolo right now.
I think it's so hard with Paolo because when I made that post, it was more about loving Jalen Williams more than despising Paolo. But I think you made a great point. A lot of his traits are theoretical right now because the volume's there, the team is won. But when you kind of look behind the numbers, when you look behind the context, Orlando was defensive driven. Orlando was one of the worst ran offenses in the NBA. And unfortunately, I get the awful spacing, the worst spacing since like 2013. But I mean, he wasn't efficient, and we have no sample size of him being an efficient creator in his career yet. He's been a pretty evident negative as a real true shooting player his first 3 years, and I think he's got great ideas as an athlete, as a rim attacker. He's still a very weird finisher because when he's locked in as a finisher, so elite, so creative, but he's also, I think he second guesses himself at the rim at times too. So I think he's a full tier behind Anthony Edwards as a young prospect. And then you look like Franz is not far off from Paolo. Right now, he's better. And then I think Orlando's court is sort of like Minnesota's, where it's like fun theoretical guys, not fully realized yet. I think Anthony Black showed some real signs. Jason Richardson, there's a world he's better than Dillingham, but I wouldn't bet on that world. There's a lot of things that Orlando could do to be ahead of Minnesota if things get right with Paolo, if things get right with a Jason Richardson, and Da Silva becomes an awesome like Diet Turkaloo and all these great things happen. Like, I think Orlando's potential super high. I would lean Minnesota too. So Orlando, I think, is pretty competitive on this list. One of the better ones we've talked about. And now we can laugh because you're trolling Jalen Green, Phoenix Suns young core, Williams, Green, Malwatch, Fleming. Yeah, I don't think they stand a chance in this one either.
If you find a Jalen Green advocate, maybe they'll be on this list. I don't know. I think the Suns are pretty cooked. I think they're pretty cooked.
I think they've done a pretty good job getting young assets from where they were because they were literally in like the worst possible situation months ago, and they're still pretty bad. But at least if you maybe drink a few beers and like squint your eyes, you might see a pretty good core. There's still that illusion now.
Definitely. I mean, my thing is, I just felt like they should have gotten more value back for Kevin Durant. That's probably my chief gripe of what they did. Like, to me, I don't want Jalen Green or Dylan Brooks on my team. And so for those guys to be like the haul that you get back for KD, I just thought they should have got back more for him. They're chopped. No first-round picks for however long. D-Book is probably going to ask out of town very soon and get shipped off to Detroit. Like, Phoenix is really bungled what they had going on. It was tough, man. They had to pivot out of the Chris Paul, Aiden, D-Book,
Mhm.
Bridges core because you're still trying to stay competitive and win a championship, and it fell apart really fast.
A lot of questions with this core. It shows why, Minnesota not going all in for Kevin Durant this summer and sacrificing all of their young players to do it was probably the right decision. I
I
think
don't know, man.
Phoenix.
I would have been in if I was the Timberwolves. I actually would have been in on a KD move, but
Well, what if it costed you? Let's just say it costed you Gobert, Dante, Rob, and Terrence Shannon.
ooh, you would give up Gobert instead of Randall.
No, I'm just saying like that was the rumor.
I wouldn't have given up. I would have. I wouldn't have given up Gobert. I thought Gobert was too imperative to the team defense. If it was Randall in a package, like if you gave up, let's say Randall, DiVincenzo, and then like a young player, I would have been interested. Maybe a Dillingham. Like if Dilly was on the table for a KD trade, I'd be okay with that. Like I think KD to me was the guy to go out and get this offseason. Like I know a lot of these moves don't always work out, and there's some poor examples you could point to if it was Damian Lillard or somebody like that. Like sometimes it does bite you on the ass. Like sometimes it is
Mhm.
better to not make the move. I just thought the fact that Houston just gave up Brooks, Green, and a first. I don't know. I felt like a lot of other teams in the NBA could have made a more compelling package.
It's funny. I think if Minnesota, we've talked about this, like if Minnesota only had to give up a young player and a pick and a Randall, then I think it's like, okay, that's cool. But some of the rumors on what Minnesota would have to give up to get KD, I'm not sure if it's like kind of a Minnesota tax. And there's also some things about like KD not being as interested going to Minnesota. Who knows what the story was? I think giving up that much for a KD who wasn't happy being here would have been a risk, especially I'm still traumatized from Jimmy Butler and trading for disgruntled superstars after a good year. I don't want to touch that again. If KD was like all in on coming here, different conversation, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So let's get over the KD trauma right now. Let's talk about. I think you and I would definitely take Minnesota over Portland, right? Because I mean, I love Denny. I love Denny. He's really putting it together. Still believe in Scoot. Yang Hansen. Heck yeah, I'm a fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I would include Shaden Sharp and Tumani Kumara and Donovan Clingan.
Of
I think in
course.
this young core, but again, with some of these other teams that we're talking about, I would just say that they just don't have that established kind of number one guy yet. Where they're probably behind in Orlando. To me, we're like I just completely believe in Paolo and Franz in a different way than I do some of these other guys. But I like the defensive foundation and the identity that this team have built. Like that's Portland has done the hardest thing that it is to do, and that's go from, and this is 2 years ago into last year, let's go from bottom dweller into competitive basketball team. And their defense was elite last season. So I do like what they're building, but because they don't have that number one guy that I believe in just yet, and I am skeptical, thank God Scoot had an improved second season because I was nervous after year one, but they just don't have that established number one guy just yet. So I couldn't put them too high on this list.
I think they're a sleeper this year in the Western Conference. I'm not even going to lie because they're so deep defensively now, and they have a really good veteran room. And I think Denny was really becoming something in the second half of last year. If Sharp and or Scoot takes like a real step, that kind of like what Detroit did last year, I think they get really interesting. But
And
yeah,
they added Drew and Dame as well, right?
yeah, they got Drew. I mean, Dame won't play this year, but I mean, just having those guys in the room with those kids, that can make a big difference for them. And if they're a top five defense and they're, just above like 19th in offense, best case, that's 43 wins. I mean, and that's something in the Western Conference, maybe playing, but something.
Definitely. I think they should be flirting with the play. And the West is just so tough, man.
So
There's
tough.
going to be 10 or 11 playoff caliber teams in the West this year.
And now, just so we can get to the fun part of the show, like talk about like do a little nerd Sesh crossover with some Timberwolves facts. Let's speed up on these last few teams because it's going to be quicker. I think sorry, Logan with Sacramento, but
Not even mad. Not even mad.
I feel you, bro. It's like the Vikings in 2021 where I was like Zimmer and Spielman, shout out Rick Spielman, super nice guy, but that iteration I was just done. And then Toronto Raptors, a lot of redundance there, some talent but
Well
redundance.
said. Well said.
Utah Jazz, nobody knows. A lot of like interesting, fun young talents, but so raw. Like they haven't even gotten to the oven yet. Nobody knows.
Yeah, I mean there's some young guys I like. I really like Filipowski. I think that guy's solid. I really like Cody Williams as a prospect. I was just wrong on that. The two guys, there are three guys that I really like in Utah, and Utah would not make my list, but Filipowski, Collier, and Walter Clayton Jr. are all three guys that I'm optimistic about. I think Filipowski's probably my favorite out of the bunch. He lit up summer league, and he's so skilled for such a big guy. But I don't think Utah would make this list for me either.
And then we move forward. The last team, the Wizards. Another team in raw. I really like some of their young players. Like I love Trey Johnson. I'm so high on. I think Trey Johnson could be a 25-point per game scorer in this league. I
Yeah,
genuinely
he's a
believe that.
bucket.
And you got,
Him and
Snar, interesting.
Koulibaly, yeah.
Koulibaly, a lot of unproven talent. I have questions
Mhm.
about Star offensively, and Koulibaly, same thing. So a lot of questions. I think it's too early for them.
Agreed. I think it's kind of wait and see, but that's kind of what they're doing right now. Not putting a ton of pressure on these guys, letting them play, letting them improve, and seeing what shakes out. I think they'd be hard pressed to make this list too.
And that does it. That's 30 NBA teams, an hour and 26 into this show. So, let's look back at it before we go into the end of the show. So, number one, OKC. Number two, San Antonio. Minnesota, top three on this list for Logan. And then who would you have four after that? Is that Indiana?
I think Indiana, and then I want to say we went Cleveland and then Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And then there's still Houston in there.
Oh yeah, Houston. Where does Houston play out? Houston. Let's put them behind Indiana.
Okay. Houston is five. And then Cleveland, six. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think the depth outweighs it. I'm cool with that.
And then number seven, would you have Detroit?
I would have Detroit over Orlando.
Detroit. And then eight is Orlando.
Yeah.
Nine. We had Mavericks pretty high. Would you have Dallas nine then?
So Coop.
Coop, Lively, Max Christie.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that sounds good. Dallas at 9.
and then who would you like at that number 10? Because those are the teams that we had extended conversations about, like the Wizards, Jazz. Another team we talked about was Portland. We talked about the Pelicans for a split second, 76ers. I think those are the teams that we visited the most. And
I
then the
feel like
Bulls are
I'm
there,
leaning
Hornets.
I feel like I'm leaning Portland maybe, man.
Portland. Perfect. So the top 10 with Logan on the best young cores, it's number one OKC, two San Antonio, three Minnesota, four Indiana, five Houston, six Cleveland, seven Detroit, eight Orlando, nine Dallas, 10 Portland. So the Minnesota Timberwolves back-to-back conference finals and still top three young core. After they told us that Minnesota's young core was going to be chopped after giving up all the first round picks for Rudy Gobert and then giving up Cad, and they said they were chopped, but nope, they are cooking.
Trust in Tim Connolly, man. Trust in Tim Connolly.
Go. I'm just happy. The nice thing about Minnesota is like what's kept us happy for 10 years is just like being on high young core rankings because we are bad every year. But now we get the best of both worlds. We can have our cake and eat it too. So life's good. But okay, so now we're going to close out the show, Logan. And it's kind of inspired by your TikToks, okay? Because if you guys don't follow Nerd Sesh, they're pretty big time, both on YouTube and TikTok, and they do great things out there. We're going to do a little trivia game with the Minnesota Timberwolves, okay? So I'm going to set it up like how Carson sets you up, okay? So this is how it's going to go. Okay, Logan. So today we are going to rank the top 10 Timberwolves scorers ever. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Who's the first person who comes to mind?
I mean, Kevin Garnett has to be number 1.
Number one at 19,201 points.
I'm gonna say that Anthony Edwards is already second on this list.
Nope, but he is number 3 with 9,097 points in 5 seasons, which is pretty ridiculous.
Wow, that is ridiculous. I'm gonna say Karl Anthony Towns then is in that 2 spot.
Karl Anthony Towns is number 2 with 13,121.
The next guy I actually think of is probably Andrew Wiggins, kind of a sneaky good scorer in Minnesota.
Number 4, he had 8,710 points in his tenure.
Maple Mamba getting buckets. Man, those, what sucks about those early Timberwolves teams with KG, what always makes me mad is that collusion deal with Joe Smith and free agency that stripped all the Wolves of their first round picks, man. Because KG could have had a title winner, man. Underrated peak, dude. One of the highest ever. There's no other studs that I'm thinking about. I know Mike Conley's been there for a little bit. I'm thinking about Gobert. I don't feel like they've been there long enough. Thinking about like Sam Cassell and Spreewell, but those guys weren't there that long. I got to think we're going to have some guys who were playing with KG on some of those early
There's another
2000s
Sam.
teams.
There's another Sam on this list.
Oh my God. He's not that good. He's got like a correct me if I'm wrong. That guy's got like a goatee, right?
Does he have a goatee? He's got a pretty cool mustache. Pretty cool mustache.
It's a pretty big hint. Let me guess. I'm about to get weird. What about Mark Madsen? Is he here?
No, he's not. You want another hint on the other Sam?
Yeah, sure. Lay it on me.
He coached the Timberwolves at some point.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge hint. I've got another Wolves weirdo real quick. Trenton Hassel, was he there long enough?
Nope, he's not in the top 10.
Okay. I got to get a step up from these Kevin Love. I can't believe I haven't said Kevin Love yet. He's definitely got to be here.
Kevin Love, number 6 with 6,989 points.
Somebody creeping in that 5 spot. Okay, this is another weird one. Very, very brief peek. James, you tell me what you thought about this guy. I thought this guy was going to be freaking sick. Nikola Pekovic.
Nikola Pekovic, no. But Nikola Pekovic, he was the strongest guy in the NBA at one point before Steven Adams. In a lot of ways, Steven Adams before Steven Adams. I have a very vague memory of like at a Target Center game when I was like 10 or 12 or something. And they would do like they had Shabazz Muhammad on the screen. And for some reason, they were like just showing shirtless pictures of Shabazz Muhammad to players. I don't know why, but they were. And Nikola Pekovic he just like smiled and laughed and goes, "Too much selfies," in like his deep, fun voice. And I was just like, that is hilarious. I don't know why that's in my head still, but it's one of my core memories of Nikola Pekovic on a Jumbotron.
Thinking about those teams with Pekovic, Rubio was there for a while. Does Rubio get on here from his longevity?
He did not. It kind of surprises me.
Not enough of a scorer.
You want me to give you a number hint on number 5?
Yeah, sure.
He directly coached Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns after Flip Saunders.
I mean, Ryan comes in. This guy was a Wolf in the 90s.
Yeah, he played 10 seasons with Minnesota, which is why he got top 5.
I mean, I think the coach you were talking about earlier, I don't know if this is the same guy. I think Sam Mitchell is the Sam.
Ding, ding, ding. Yep, he's number 5.
Wow, that's absurd. So we're missing 7 through 10, correct?
Yep. And there's another big notable player who played with Kevin Garnett for years in this top 10.
Zerbiak.
Yes, number 7.
Zerbiak.
6,777 points.
Good hint. Okay, I'm going to guess a couple other weirdos just because I don't know how long these guys were there, so I really want to rip Corey Brewer for some reason.
No, he's not on this list. But Corey Brewer, shout out to the Timberwolves because we got more random 50-point games than anybody. We got Mo
For
Williams,
real.
we got Corey Brewer, and then we did one of the greatest moments in my life. We saw Derrick Rose get 50 in 2018, I believe. That was
True.
pretty cool.
I'm thinking about like Gary Neal too, man. Gary Neal's not on here, is he?
Nope.
I don't know why I'm thinking about these
Eight,
guys.
8 to 10. I want to give one hint on one, but I feel like if I say it, you're going to get it in like a millisecond.
Is Irvin Johnson on here? He's another guy I'm thinking about.
No. The next guy has two one word or one the words. 2 1 syllables. First name, last name.
What era of Wolf are we talking about?
I would say I didn't watch him. I think he was like 90s, 2000s.
90s, 2000s, one syllable name. What positions are we looking at
90s.
here?
He
For these
came on the
last three guys?
Timberwolves. He came on the Timberwolves when they first became a team in 1989.
Okay.
He stayed in Minnesota from 89 to 97, which is why he's on this list.
Damn, I'm thinking about Anthony Peeler now too.
At his peak, average over 19 points a game for Minnesota.
Dang.
Yeah.
What positions are we looking at for these last three guys?
So this guy's a shooting guard, and then one is a very famous power forward.
A famous power forward. Is it Leitner? Is it just
Yep.
Leitner?
Christian
Okay.
Leitner, number 10. So you have 8 and 9 open, and the other player is a small forward. Played in the early Timberwolves tenure as well, from 84 to 96, but he played in Minnesota in particular for, I believe, 3 seasons.
3 seasons got on the list. So this guy had to be pretty good, huh?
Yeah, at his peak average 23 points per game.
Wow.
NBA champion in 1988.
What is that? The Pistons?
That was 88. I think so.
It might have been the Lakers. I think it's either the Pistons or the Lakers, if I'm not mistaken. That's a big hint. And this is the small forward.
It's Lakers. Wait, no. Let me verify. Sorry, I thought it was Lakers. It is Lakers. Lakers won in 1988.
Did he play for that team?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, he did.
That's a big hint.
Yep. Both of these players were very early tenure Timberwolves.
I'm drawing blanks on these guys.
Yeah, he averaged on that Lakers team 11 points per game. So he was a rotation player.
Okay. It's not Cedric Sabalos, is it?
But here's the caveat. So he actually got injured that year. So he didn't complete the quest for the 88 Lakers.
He got a ring, though. He got a ring. That's
got a
all that
ring.
matters.
That's absolutely.
Ooh. I'm drawing blanks on these two guys, James.
Let me know if you want me to tell you the 8 and 9, because you got 8 for 10, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah. Give me initials on these guys. If they don't do it for me, I'm probably not going to get it then.
TC and DW.
It made me think of Dave Wingate. Yeah, who are these guys?
Tony Campbell and Doug West.
Doug West and Tony Campbell. I'm going to be honest, I do not think I was pulling those, but it's a crazy list, man. That back half is wicked, dude.
We need some Jaden McDaniels buckets and Nas Reed buckets and Randall buckets to make this list look a little bit better. That's definitely true. Rob Dillingham buckets, Terrence Shannon buckets. Let's get all of them on the top 10. It's actually possible, which is hilarious. So, yep, that is the Timberwolves. Honestly, probably the most comedic outside the Hornets.
The Clippers for a while was pretty good. The Clippers and the Nets always crack me up too. Those are good lists.
Oh, man. We're definitely still on the bottom of this list. I mean, 2021, we had the worst record in North American history of any sport. Worst total record in North American
way.
sports. Yes, and as of 2021, they did. Not anymore, but they're still low.
Oh, you're saying in totality?
Yeah, in totality.
That's crazy. I could believe it, though. I could believe it.
Minnesota and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in a tank fest. So those weren't very good. But now let's close out the show with this last one. Okay, this one I think you'll do pretty good on, pretty quick. Tell me the top 10 highest Timberwolves draft picks of all time, Logan.
Top 10. Anthony Edwards for sure.
Yep, number 1 pick.
Karl Anthony Towns also a number 1 overall pick.
Number 1.
Andrew Wiggins also a number 1 overall pick.
Wiggins
Or
doesn't
except he's a
count.
Cav. He's a Cav. I forgot.
Yep.
As was Anthony Bennett. So let's see. Those are all the top guys. Do you guys draft? Does Chris Dunn count for you guys?
Chris Dunn does count. He is tied in the top 10 because all of these names are top 10 picks, actually. So you can play around a little bit. They're all top 5 picks.
I think Gary Neal was a top 10 pick for you guys. Was that the right guy?
He's
It
not.
was Gary Neal.
Was he? I think did he go 6? He's not on this list that I put up.
There's a wing. Is it Wesley Johnson? There's a wing you guys took. I remember.
Gary Neal was
early.
not a draft pick. Gary Neal was not a draft pick. I just learned that now.
Who is you guys took a wing really high one year. If it was it's not Wesley Johnson. Wesley Johnson played for you guys. Who was the other
Wesley
guy?
Johnson is on this list. He went 4th.
Oh, it is.
overall.
Okay, it is Wesley
overall.
Johnson.
1 pick ahead of DeMarcus Cousins.
Speaking of which, nice one. Speaking of which, you guys are going to have Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio, correct?
Yes.
Kevin Love, Rubio. Do
There's
you guys
a lot of picks in this, so you can do no wrong, really.
Do you guys take Marbury? Was Marbury a top pick for you guys?
Actually, this is a very famous trade. So Minnesota had the 5th pick that year, and they flipped it. Got Marbury.
Who would that have been?
Very famous player. But Minnesota drafted this player.
It's a 96 draft. Who would Marbury have gotten? I don't want you to give me the team because I feel like that would be a giveaway. Ray Allen's in that class. It's not
ding, ding, ding.
Ray Allen.
Ray Allen was the 5th pick that year.
Okay.
There's another famous 5th overall pick that Minnesota had.
Did he play for you guys?
Yeah, he's pretty darn good, actually.
He's on your team now. Did you guys okay, this is an aside. I don't know if this is right. Did you guys draft Al Jefferson?
That was
no, Jefferson was traded from Boston.
For
KG.
There you go. KG was the 5th pick. Oh, I do want to say I did mess up on the Kevin Love thing. So Kevin Love was also traded for a different player.
Oh, interesting.
He was swapped. And this is actually a positive.
Yeah. 08 draft. Is it OJ Mayo?
Yep. OJ Mayo.
Okay. And then what other, can you give me the number picks that we're looking for?
So we're looking for, so number 1, number 2, or we're still looking for number 2, I think. Number 2 pick.
A number 2 pick that you guys had. Let me think on this.
Unless
no, not Mike Beasley. Mike Beasley got drafted by Miami.
Unless I completely missed it and you already said it.
This is another aside. Did you guys draft? Levine was the 13th pick. You guys
13th.
didn't draft Markkanen, did you?
No, we did, but he went 7th, so he's not on this list.
Okay, so these are all top. Oh, these are all top 5. You said.
Yeah, we weren't very good at basketball for a long time.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm missing a number 2 pick. I said Rubio. Johnny Flynn's not going to make the list. Yeah, because he's like 7.
6. Yep.
Number 2 pick, and this is in the 2000s, I would assume, right?
2010s to make the hint a little closer.
Oh my God, who am I spacing on? Was this guy any good?
Nope.
He was shit. That's great. That's great. Who did you guys whiff on? Not Chris Dunn. Also, this guy doesn't count either, right? Jared Culver was not a top 5 pick.
Nope, you 6.
Damn, painting the corners. Damn, dude, what year did this guy go? I am not formulating any thoughts.
2011.
Derek Williams. Wow.
Derek Williams. Yep.
I forgot that guy existed. Yeah.
So far you've gotten Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Derek Williams, OJ Mayo, Wesley Johnson, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Ricky Rubio. You said Ricky Rubio.
I did.
You have 2 more you can go with. And I would say there's another number 4 pick if you want to go at it, and there's like a surplus, and there's a number 3 pick.
It's a number 3 and a number 4 pick. Are these guys both post 2000?
One's 90s. Both are 90s actually.
Both are 90s. Were these guys any good for you?
One was pretty good. One had a ton of hype. One of the most hype prospects of the 90s.
You guys didn't draft like Glenn Robinson. Glenn Robinson was the number 1 pick.
Nope,
This is number 3 and
pick.
4.
Big name, though. Very big name.
You didn't draft Leitner too, did you?
Drafted them 3. Yep, Christian
The
Leitner.
Wolves drafted Leitner.
They drafted
Wow.
Leitner 3rd overall. Yep, and he had a pretty solid start to his career, but then he and KG couldn't really coexist, so Leitner had to go.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one more, and this one is like I actually don't know much about this player because I didn't watch the NBA in the 90s. I just know random draft pick names. But this player wasn't awful, I don't think. And he's a name. It's a hard name, but it's a name.
What position did this guy play?
What position did he play? So this player, he played small forward. And he actually, get this, he only played a half a season in Minnesota.
Where would I remember him with?
His peak years were definitely had with the Golden State Warriors in late 90s and Utah early 2000s.
Oh my gosh, this isn't like... That makes me think Raja Bell for some reason.
Nope.
Warriors and Jazz. Oh, is it? No. It's not. No, I was going to guess
Who was it?
Sprewell. It's not going to be Sprewell.
Not Sprewell. Nope.
Sprewell's Knicks, Dubs.
He only played 40 games with the Timberwolves, actually.
That's crazy.
40, and he got traded to the Golden State Warriors.
You guys were not fucking with this guy.
Made an all-rookie team, though.
Damn, what's the initials on this guy?
DM.
DM.
Best year with the Warriors, he averaged 15.5 points a game and nearly 9 rebounds.
This guy wasn't a bum. It's okay. Drew.
You're close, but no. DM.
Man, I'm drawing blanks on this guy. Who is this too?
It's Danielle Marshall.
Wow, 12 threes in a game. Danielle Marshall. Yeah, I think of that was a good hint. I think of Danielle sometimes with Cleveland too. That guy bounced around. I didn't know he was drafted by Minnesota though.
Yeah, Minnesota had a lot of random trades in the 90s that, you look back, you're kind of like, what happened there? But yeah, Logan, you just honestly, man, like if you had me do this about the Kings, bro, I would be cooked.
I'm not mad about that. I'm pretty satisfied. That was those were 2 good questions, man. Definitely Nerd Sesh certified.
Heck yeah, man. You guys are an inspiration in the draft trivia world, first of all. But Logan, man, this is, I think, maybe the longest episode of Wilder Wolves ever, and you've stuck through it the entire time.
I can yap, man. I know we can yap too when we get together.
Oh yeah, man. We've probably done like unofficial recorded episodes on the basketball court like
For
30
real.
times over. This is just a continuation of that. But Logan, just thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure having you on.
Likewise, man. Thank you for having me on. I'd love to come back, and we got to get you sometime, man. Talk some Wolf Shop on the pod sometime, man.
Oh, heck yeah, man. I would love that, man. We could do some fun trivia too on that too. So that would be awesome. But Logan, you kill it. You are fantastic. And what you guys do in Nerd Sesh, I think you guys are one of the best platforms on YouTube, on TikTok. If you haven't heard of Nerd Sesh, definitely take a look at them on TikTok, on YouTube. They're on all the major platforms. I see them on X, on Instagram. They're all over the place. So they do great work. But Logan, you're the best. I'll catch up with you soon. And thank you all so much for listening today. This is Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode Fandom.